The Mandela effect. Lately it's gotten a lot of attention. Are the powers that be trying to alter reality? I suspect they've been doing so for a long time. After all, isn't that Satan's objective? To deceive us? One of the most effective tools has been television. It has caused the masses to accept things that, in the 1950s, would have produced an outrage. Today, the most vile content has a benign impact on most people. We've been desensitized and our idea of reality changed, and the ubiquitous they have used television to program us. So I wouldn't be surprised that if the powers that be were able to use the Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland, to change reality, they would. When I was first introduced to the Mandela effect, it was through changes in movie and book titles, lines in movies, and changes in recognizable brands. To me, it seemed like there was something going on, and it was exciting to think that these changes were caused by some nefarious force able to open a crack in time and space, thereby shifting our reality to a parallel universe, where things are similar, but not exactly the same. Yet somehow we manage to retain a kind of residual memory of the original reality. And the idea that this was all caused by evil people manipulating the Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland, was intriguing. Then I was introduced to the idea that the Mandela effect was miraculously changing the King James Bible, changing specific words on the pages of every King James Bible since the day it was published to the present. At first, I thought there might be something to it. After all, everything familiar about Isaiah chapter 11 verse 6 indicates that the verse should read, "The lion also shall dwell with the lamb. Not the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb." The amount of current literature and artwork portraying the lion and the lamb is overwhelming, and everyone you ask seems to remember lion and lamb, not wolf and lamb. To me, it seemed like a pretty good argument, so I decided to look into ancient commentaries, like those of John Gill and Matthew Henry of the 17th century. Lo and behold, they consistently reference wolf and lamb, just as it reads in the King James Version today. Then I looked into the Masoretic text from which the Old Testament of the KJV was primarily translated. And it also says wolf and lamb. So it seemed to me that wolf and lamb indeed was the original reading of the text, and that today's KJV reading, wolf and lamb, is correct. No Mandela effect there. The next example I checked out was wineskins. Promoters of the Mandela effect say the KJV used to read wineskins, and now it reads bottles. Mark chapter 2 verses 21 and 22, for example, reads, "No man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine doth burst the bottles, and the wine is spilled, and the bottles will be marred, but new wine must be put into new bottles." According to the Mandela effect, every KJV reads bottles when it used to read wineskins. And this includes every KJV published since day one. The only explanation, they say, is that the Hadron Collider was opened, and it altered every single KJV since the day it was first published. Yet, when I checked Bible commentaries from the 1600s, they referenced bottles, not wineskins. Why would Gill and Henry reference bottles if the KJV said wineskins? In fact, the only Bibles that read wineskins are the corrupt modern translations that KJV proponents disdain. At this point in my research, I began to realize that believers in the Mandela effect appealed primarily to feelings and memory. They would argue that certain words don't feel right, and that they don't remember those words being part of the KJV. Yet they provide no tangible evidence. In other words, they cannot produce an original, untainted version to compare with Mandelized versions that they claim we now have. So there's no concrete proof, just feelings and memory, no real hard evidence. I must say that when I first encountered the Mandela effect on the KJV, part of me wanted to believe it was true. But after my emotions settled down, and I began looking for concrete evidence to the contrary, I had little choice but to accept the facts that neither commentators of the 17th century nor manuscript evidence supported the claim that all KJV Bibles have been supernaturally altered, and that the Hadron Collider is the cause. Let me give you a few more examples. Many YouTube videos promoting the Mandela effect insist that the word stuff in the KJV just doesn't sound right, that it's a kind of slang term that modern English speakers use, and I have to admit that I kind of went along with it. However, I turned to my English Etymology Dictionary, Oxford edition, edited by C.T. Onions, and I looked up the etymology of stuff. Lo and behold, it appears that stuff was a term used as early as the 1400s to mean substance or goods, and it was in no way considered slang. And the term would have been used in the same sense in the 16th and 17th centuries, circa the KJV. Thus, it would be quite normative for the KJV translators to use the word stuff in their translation. There was nothing slang or 21st century modern about it. It was an old and commonly accepted word for goods. This is also made evident in the works of Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, when he used the term stuff in his plays. For example, Prospero in The Tempest, Act 4 says, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on." Again, stuff was a common and accepted word when the KJV was compiled. So when Mandela effect promoters insist that stuff is a weird and slangish modern word supernaturally inserted into the KJV, they really have no idea that it was a common word in the 16th and 17th centuries, and not modern slang at all. The word couch is another example that Mandela effect promoters cite, insisting the word was not in their KJV when they first bought it. Yet Gill and Henry in the 17th century quote the KJV and reference the word couch, again proving that the word was indeed in use during the translation period of the KJV. The same is true of the word debtor, found in the Lord's Prayer. Yet Gill and Henry in the 17th century quote the KJV and reference the word debtor. Since they reference the KJV, it is very likely that that was the word used in the original 1611 translation. Conversely, we find the word trespasses in what KJV proponents call the corrupt versions, thus insisting that the KJV originally used trespasses and that the word was supernaturally changed to debtors in today's Bibles is akin to promoting corrupt Bible translations that KJVists decry. I even found a YouTube video where they said the word Judea, Judaea, found in the KJV had been changed from Judea, Judea, and they insisted that was proof of the Mandela effect. So I opened up my copy of the Textus Receptus and looked up the word. It uses the exact Greek letters that correspond correctly to Judaea, in particular, the D-A-E-A. The Textus Receptus uses the following letters of the Greek alphabet: delta, alpha, iota, and alpha. Exactly translated into English is D-A-E-A, or in the context of the entire word Judea, J-U-D-A-E-A. Thus the current rendering of Judea is correct and has not been altered in any way. I could go on and on about this, as there are many more erroneous examples cited in YouTube videos that promote the Mandela effect. Yet I cannot deny that something nefarious is afoot. It matters little whether the Mandela effect is true or false. Its overall effect has been to cause confusion, and that is always Satan's objective. And now there is much disinformation pouring forth from the internet, often from well-meaning but inadequately informed Christians. And it seems that few actually do the research required to confirm or deny the many claims that Mandela effect promoters put forth. So far, I have not found a single claim that is supported historically in commentaries, manuscript evidence, etymologies, and secular writings. So until a Mandela effect promoter is able to show me a verifiable original version of the KJV that proves their point, I must reject the Mandela effect on the KJV as mere imagination, since all historic writings and commentaries do indeed support the fact that the KJV I hold in my hand is the same as the 1611 edition. And every verse I ever memorized over the past 60 years is exactly as I remember. They are unchanged. As for what's going on with secular movies, pop songs, and popular quotes and brands, I suspect there is some tampering. But to attribute that to a Mandela effect, I think may be a stretch, but not impossible. Many thanks for listening, all my Bereans. Continue to study to show yourselves approved.